I think it's a lovely story, Jesus running away at the age of 12, disappearing from the caravan, from his family. At least it's interesting. It's one of those stories you kind of forget, like, oh, that's a little strange. And what's funny, or maybe even beautiful about it, is how quickly Mary sees the light of God in Christ, even in such a hard situation. I can't imagine losing a kid for days, right? And then finding him back in the town that we left somehow. That's incredible. I can only imagine the fear and the hurt. And asking him from an anxious place, as it says, why are you here? He answers with a wisdom that speaks to Mary. And it says that she treasured all these things in her heart. In her heart. I think mothers often look past our foibles for the wisdom, for the love, for the light of God that we show. We take it for granted often, our mothers, and maybe even our own motherly attributes. And so many of you are mothers, twice or three times over, right? For many generations. But that kindness, that willingness to hold space for family, even when they've done wrong, I think is often a lesson for us in God, if I can just put it plainly, in God. We all have seen the movies where the mom is too supportive of her murderous son or something like that. But I think often the world is the opposite, right? Seeking to control, condemn pretty much anyone, even for the slightest infraction at times. We know we live in a culture today that sometimes shuts people out and isn't really interested in rehabilitation. And I think often our mothers can serve as a space to kind of counteract that, a space for peace, for love, which is indeed the space that we all live in every moment, that we all see from, I believe. The very light of consciousness is such a love, such a wisdom, an insightful presence. Now, of course, not every mother is the same, but there's something about mothers being there for us, if they were there for us, that I think just generally it can't help but speak to divinity, a presence that's just there before we even knew a word, before we diagnosed anything, before we had any ideas to diagnose things from. When we were a baby, our mothers held us, taught us the power of presence, among many other things. Many, many, many other things. I hear it's that ability, that presence that a parent brings, the good times and the bad, that is actually the most stabilizing influence on a person. We take it for granted. They call it, or I've heard it called like trash time or something like that, where nothing's really going on. But it is indeed the most important time often, when a parent is just willing to be there, whether or not there's something important happening. Of course, that's what parents often do, not every parent. And it's easy to look past, kind of like the ground at our feet, allowing any of this to happen. And so there's a great blessing in our mothers, and I'm just scratching the surface today, as you know. Such a great blessing. And I believe even for those who may not relate to this idea, there is a type of motherly presence that allows for life, as I mentioned. I think of it as God's presence. God holds us in every moment, holds us. Before we really know anything, you could say we still hardly know anything. God is holding us, empowering us. Indeed, if The sages are right, if Emanuel Swedenborg's right, and everything happens according to divine providence, teaching us to become more loving and good and to tap into the source within. And God is constantly present in every little detail that we notice. You put two people in the same room, they see totally different things. But each person, what they see, what they learn from, what they're getting, even if it's annoying or challenging or good, according to these ideas anyway, some type of learning moment. It may help them learn in the future, helps them to realize what is good, maybe, what isn't so good. Might even invite each of us those challenges to overcome the mind that's so worrisome, so anxious, fearful, and defensive. And our mothers teach us these things as well, encouraging us to overcome our challenges. They are often there, in the midst of them, if we need them, especially when we're young, right? I related a little anecdote about my youth. I was kind of a rambunctious kid at Robert E. Lee Elementary School in Columbia, Missouri. And I just, got in trouble. I noticed a lot of brown kids got in trouble in that school. And I wasn't very happy with authority at the time. And I was also a little bullied. I was called, chubby and fat often. And I remember the fights at recess. We had often 2 recesses a day, I think. And the first recess would be a fight. Second recess would be sitting out. And thankfully, I was never really suspended, which I can't even imagine how that's possible. So, there was some grace there, even there, some grace. And my mom, of course, would have to deal with all these things. I can't imagine. My brother as well, my little brother, he was, if I can tell you folks, he was suspended a few times. I don't think it wasn't for fighting. Who knows what it was for? But it felt like a system that was a little oppressive. And sometimes boys react to that, or maybe I was the oppressive one. But I remember fighting bullies and getting in trouble. And my mom, who never had a car, showing up if she had to from the city bus and walking in and addressing the issue if she needed to, or getting the phone call and doling out some responsibility. And I think our mothers, even if they're ever, a little heavy-handed or something, they often teach us the ways of the world. They model for us what we often run into even worse, in the world. Sometimes we're so upset at being punished, put in the corner or something, But often they're modeling for us the unfortunate reality of an often uncaring world. Not to let everything slide on their behalf either. But I think mothers, they have so many lessons for us. It's hard to put into words. We can just kind of point at them and we all can sort of relate. And I think that's God in them. If God is the only reality, the only true thing, then what we're getting from each other that's so real, so true, so beautiful and giving is a piece of God. It's an understanding of the infinite goodness of God already present in our lives. Already there, we're told. Always here for us. And I can't think of a better example of that than our moms. And I know coming into this church, there's so much love, so many great mothers and motherly figures here. I think that's why so many people find it so loving and inviting when they come. And also why they don't feel the need to always show up every week, because there's no pressure. We're not here to beat each other up, And I think it's so beautiful, and it's one of the reasons why Alyssa and I believe decided to come here. Not New York City, not Kansas, not Chicago. Kitchener, Ontario, which was a kind of a leap for us into Canada, and it was because of just the beauty of this congregation. It truly, truly was. So I thank you all for that. So we have a lot to give thanks for. We have a lot to celebrate today. I hope you celebrate yourself as a mother, as a motherly one. Allow some of your mom to shine through today. What lessons haven't fully been embodied yet? Why not enjoy that aspect of your mom today? Now let's take a moment to reflect on mothers together. And just lastly, wanted to mention, to highlight the plight of potential mothers today in the U.S. with the potential pulling of Roe v. Wade. And I think maybe Alyssa or someone could speak better to this, but I know it's quite horrendous. The idea that Roe v. Wade may be pulled. If you haven't heard, there was a leak that it may be overturned at the Supreme Court. And I didn't realize at first that that means that for many women today, if they're thinking about getting pregnant, there's a real conundrum, an unfortunate and horrific idea that perhaps if they get pregnant and the state repeals all abortion rights, then they can't even have an abortion if it will save their life. And that's just one of the many issues, of course, but I think speaks to the core of the horror there, that if you're 3 weeks pregnant and your doctor says, well, there's something going wrong and this is likely to kill you, you may not be able to have an abortion, which is often, of course, right, the protocol. So I wanted to just bring that up for our prayers and our reflection, so that our hearts can go out to each other and our ladies and all the people impacted by this, all the states, and just the sadness and horror of such a situation. And with that, let us return to a place of meditation and listen to Caleb play.